Hey guys, Nate Tucker here with another lesson in Meteor, understanding the weird parts. And we're understanding one of the least weird parts about Meteor this time, that is the validated methods. Um, Methods used to be weird. There were lots of weird parts about methods, and they used to be not that much fun. Validated methods makes them much more fun. Uh, there's two reasons. I think there's like 5 or 6 reasons why you want to do validated methods. If you go over actually to the official Meteor documentation, I think they list 6. To me, there's only 2 big ones here. One, there's an object that represents your method. That way you can actually refer to it through JavaScript code, you can import it. That's wonderful. Built-in validation, that's nice, but you could have already done that. The third one is also a big one. Easily call methods from test or server-side code, passing any user ID that you want. This is, again, really incredibly simple. All of these things are incredibly simple in order to implement, but it's great to have something that's uniform that you can use throughout all of the code. A few more things that it helps out with. It throws errors from the client side, which I will talk about shortly, and you can get the return value of a stub by default. I'll also talk about that shortly. Final thing is mixins, which aren't too important, but we'll check them out. So let's go ahead. I mean, let's figure these things out. In order to make a validate method, we're just going to sort of go ahead, copy this code here, repaste it, name our method temp, since it's a nice temporary validate method. Give it a nice name, like temp. Give it a new validate. Again, for the validator, you can use check, or you can use simple schema. Simple schema is, in my opinion, just a better thing to be using. People use it all the time. It's a nice, simple user interface, and it's an aligned interface, meaning that you're going to have to use this interface when you're going about making your simple schema objects that we'll talk about later, which act as the API for your entire website. So the only thing we want here is we want a num, and this number will have type. We're not going to have any label on it, and it will have the type number. We'll go ahead and do some Airbnb style. Okay, so we've got a validator here. If this method is called incorrectly with something that is not validated, then you'll get a big flashy red error message. Another thing that will happen is this will only happen on the client. Why does it only happen on the client? I'll actually show you that in the code. I was figuring this is going to be like super simple, at least the sort of demonstration of it. So I was actually going to go through, dig through the code for you guys, show you what's actually there, give you a better understanding of it. For the run, let's go ahead and deconstruct this. Let's delete all this. We're going to go ahead and log this out. This num. We're gonna log out meteor.userid. User ID. And we're going to go ahead and log out this. There's a slight method to my madness. So what happens in validated methods? You call the method. You call it by running its call function. It passes the arguments to your method through a validator, a single object. The validator will check if it's right or not. If it's wrong, it will throw an error message, and it will only work on the client. So you won't actually throw anything back to your server. We'll save latency, make your clients happy. Then we'll go through run. The run actually does all the bulk of the method, which is okay. Some part of me wishes we could do a little bit more on the client side, but the run does the bulk of the method. You can check whether the user is logged in. You can check whether they're an admin. Then you can go ahead and do all the inserting that you might want to do. There are 2 more parts, but there's an apply options, which I'll show you. I'll show you this when we're actually going over the real code for the methods. There are 2 things in apply options that matter. The first thing in apply options that matters is returning method stubs, which you want to do. And the second thing, which I was talking about, was one of like the big boons of validated methods in the first place, was oh man, that's great. Okay. And then the second thing, which was a big boon of validated methods in the first place, was being able to execute on the client side checking, validating, and if it's not validated on the client side, skip the server side altogether. Final part about these things is you can have something called mixins. So what are mixins? Mixins are functions. They're a set of functions. The functions are defined like as follows. So we go ahead and we make a const change name. And what this function does is it takes the options that you'd pass into a new validated method, like name, like validate, like run. It takes these options and it applies a transformation to these options and then returns something new. So we'll go ahead, we'll make something called const changed options equals options. I'm going to go ahead and say changed options dot name equals, and we'll go ahead and say options dot name. What do we want to call these? Dot changed. Okay, and we'll go ahead and return changed options. So in this case here, it's incredibly simple. Change next defined, never used. Let's use it. In this case here, it's incredibly simple. We take the options that we pass into the validate method. We change the name. So in this case, we might want to change the name to be something with this dot specified language. But for the most part, people use these in order to do commonly referenced logic in methods. And so what do we mean by that? We're talking about making sure the user is logged in, making sure they're an admin. Sometimes you'll do slightly different things, like adding hooks to them. I've seen people use this for. I'll go over this rather slightly. Mixins aren't necessary. You don't need to do them. They're okay. You can do all this logic in your run function and just go ahead and pass this in. They're fine. If you want to use mixins, if you find this sort of change name better than doing something as in actually putting in a different name, or putting in a function up here in name that would give it something new, be my guest. I don't know why they added mixins here, but for my taste, they're a little bit unnecessary. We'll go ahead, we'll save this. This looks good enough. So, first thing that's great about these methods, you can import them now. So instead of calling some random name, we can go ahead, we can import temp from, where's it from? Imports, maybe /API, maybe /list methods .js. Hopefully that's right. I'm just going to export this to the global namespace. Temp equals temp. So that's great. We no longer have to have some random string. I'm very sad that they even had the idea of putting random strings in there. There's still too many random strings in Meteor. Publications all are just basically random strings that could make a validated publication. That would make me very happy. Other random strings as well are routes. I wish those were less like random strings. You technically can export those, and I've sort of experimented around with exporting that, at least exporting their name, because you use that in various places. But we'll go over that in more detail a little bit later. Let's check out how these work. So we're over here. We're at this page, and we go ahead and we can check out what temp is. So we've got this temp. It is a validated method. So what do we have in this validated method? The validated method has something called mixins. It's got name, it's got run, and it's also got, where is it? Validate. So it's got all these properties, and you'll notice that the name that we put in is kind of the name that we wanted to get out. It's the name that we got after transforming it. It looks like we forgot to put the whatever this is, or whatever it is to make this an actual template. This is the name after we transformed it with the mixin, which is okay. It's cool. It's fine. Thank you for the mixin. But that's really not what we use these for. What we use methods for is we use them to call. So in order to actually have this method run something, we give it. We look at this method called call. We give it an object that looks like it, and we go ahead and we run it. So what do we go here? So we call on 5, we get a 5 back, we get a null back, we get the this back, and we get an undefined. So why did we get all this? Undefined because we didn't return anything. So let's go ahead and return something. Let's return num plus 1. We go ahead and get a number here that we logged out. That was the number that we actually put in. That makes perfect sense. The meteor.userid, this will be null, of course. This, in this case, is the method invocation, and the undefined is the output. So call makes sense. What you also see here is that this method was called on the server as well. So we get a 5, we get a null, we get the this from the server. We don't really get a return value on the server, but we get all that good stuff. The method was called both on the client and the server, so you need to make sure that you're using correct logic on both. Now I want to do one more thing here. Let's call this on something that doesn't have a num property, that instead has a name property that goes to hello. Hello. What happens? Well, one thing that happens is you get unexpected string, but second thing is you get a validated method error, which is nice. You'll notice on the server, nothing happened. This is because on the server, we're not even sending it anything. If we get a validation error on the client, we go ahead and cancel. Nothing happens on the server. This can save clients a lot of latency concerns. This can save you a lot of ping, a lot of resources on the server too. So be happy about that. Second good thing about this. Third good thing about this is, of course, the ability to call .execute. So these have one more useful command, and that is .execute. What execute takes is it takes a this. What does that mean? It takes a context. So we can go ahead and set user ID to me. So that's the me. And it takes the exact same thing. So we can go ahead and say num goes to 2. Let's execute. Here we go. So 2 is our number. Null, again, is what we get from Meteor ID. We get a new object, which has user ID equals me. And then we get 3, which is the return. The only thing that execute does is it literally calls .bind on the object that you passed in. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with sort of like the bind, at least I think the 3, the call, bind, and apply. These are 3 built-in functional methods that JavaScript comes with. What call does is it basically it calls something with. So what call does is you can pass it the object that you want it to refer to as this, and then you call it on specific arguments. Bind binds the function to a specific object. So it takes an object and it binds it to that function, which is pretty cool. What that basically means is that you can take a function, you can say, okay, the object that you're going to reference, the this that you're going to reference inside yourself, is going to be yada yada. It's going to be Bob or something like that. Remember that. You get a new function out and you can sort of play with it. And then you've got apply. And apply is kind of nice when dealing with arrays and semi-argument types. So, but we're not really the purpose here. All this does is it literally goes and it does the bind. You'll also notice that we get nothing out here on the server. So why is this? Well, I think we're kind of done with what you actually are going to be doing with these sorts of things. The only thing that you're going to be doing with these is on the client basically only on the client you're going to be calling the .call method. You're going to be happy that the latency is going to be, or that you're not going to have to ping the server when the validate method fails. You're going to be happy that you can reference it. And then you're going to be referencing it on the server, happy that you can reference it again, and then happy that you can call .execute. Now, previously, with methods that you called on the server, you couldn't actually set what their user ID was. So you were pretty much, you were kind of up a creek when it came to doing testing. You had to sort of invent your own framework. But what Meteor methods did is they gave us this new framework to work with. I'm going to show you how they did it, and you're going to be a little bit surprised. Went through the benefits. One more thing that I did want to talk about here is that there are options to meteor.apply. The return stub value equals true. So this makes it possible to get the ID of the upserver item, fair, and then throw stub exceptions. This is what I was talking about. Don't call the server method. No need to do validations twice. So what does it do? Here's validate method. This is the entire thing. Validate method is a class. It comes with a constructor. The constructor, you should see, is very simple. It goes ahead. It applies the mixins that you've got to the options. It gets new options out. And then it sets the options. After it sets the options, it makes sure that the options look okay. It goes ahead and it sets the default apply stuff. So if you don't actually have that done, it will go ahead and set that. It will apply this to your method calls, and it will do a little bit more stuff down here. Down here. I'm not gonna talk too much about this because this gets into way too many details. But I'm gonna sort of skip a little forward and just check out what we've got in both call and apply. So what do we have in call? So in call, we basically go ahead and we just do this.connection.apply, this.name, args, this.apply options callback. So what does this do? The connection applies this.name. This.name is the name of the method. The method, at least in old school Meteor, the way that you'd refer to methods was by this arbitrary string. So they've kept that. They've kept that along. You can still refer to it as an arbitrary string. But we've encapsulated that referring to it as an arbitrary string inside this validated method. We pass in the args that we want it. We give it the apply callbacks or the apply options, which I talked about there. Those were those two that were very important, and there are also two more: no retry as well as a callback once the result happens. But that's incredibly complex. I doubt you guys will ever be doing a Meteor application where you'll need that sort of functionality. And it goes ahead and executes the callback. Super simple. It's doing the exact same thing as the old call does, except for it's encapsulating this.name. The execute, which is phenomenal, the only thing that it does is it says this.validate.bind. So execute takes two things: method invocation and args. You remember what method invocation was? This was this, right? The one thing that it actually does append onto this is the name. And why does it need that name? Well, it needs that name because the this.name is actually how you refer to the method. So you definitely need that. That's the one thing that you need on your this. And then it goes ahead and it does its two things. It goes ahead and it binds the method invocation. So let's use this as our object. I'm a little bit surprised it didn't use call here, but whatever. Not too big of a deal. So it goes ahead and it binds the method invocation. Then it executes the validate. Throws the error. Goes ahead and it binds the method invocation to the run. And then it goes ahead and it executes it. So super simple. Apply mixins. I'm really not going to go ahead and go over this. You can sort of figure this out on your own. I just wanted to show you that this was just incredibly simple code. That's all. That's the entirety of validated methods. That one file, how many lines was it? It was 120 lines long. This is not daunting. It's not impossible to do. Anyone can go in there and kind of look at this and figure out what's going on. It's not magic what they're doing. And it's nice to know what's going on. It's nice to see these sorts of things and figure out how to optimize it yourself. So that's validated method. That's probably more than you'd ever want to know about it. You know how it works. You know why it works. You know when it works. You know how to use it. We'll be using it a lot going forward, especially in autoform and especially in testing. So look forward to that. But otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope this was a little bit enlightening and shows you that Meteor is not just magic. It's instead a lot of weird parts that are fun to understand. Okay? Always a pleasure. And over now.